We now turn to Victor Gao. He is Chair Professor at Soochow University. Thanks very much for joining us on the show, Victor. Now, China underscored its commitment to its claim on Taiwan. What was the most important point Wang Ye was making in his speech, do you think?
Well, Taiwan is the most important core interest as far as China is concerned. As a matter of fact, the origin of the Taiwan issue actually could be traced back all the way to the end of the Second World War, when Japan unconditionally surrendered according to the Cairo Declaration and the Potsdam Declaration, which required and mandated that Japan unconditionally surrender Taiwan back for China. Now, this is very important because this is one of the pillars of the current international order established on the victory legacies of the Second World War. That's why I think State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Ye emphasized again and again that the question of Taiwan has been sealed for all these decades, and no one should be allowed to change the nature of Taiwan. That is, there is only one China, and Taiwan is part of China. And as far as 181 countries are concerned, they also recognize that the PRC government is the sole legitimate representative of the totality of China. This has been a very important cornerstone of the current international existing order, and if other countries, for example, especially countries like the United States, want to change this status quo, then it will really cause great damage to not only China's interests, but also to the world at large.
So did Wang Ye hold out an olive branch, do you think, in his speech to the US in a way that might invite a more measured dialogue, perhaps just in the name of peace for the region?
Absolutely. I think what Mr. Wang Ye emphasized is that in the world of great turmoil, in the world of war and crisis and tensions, etc., cooperation and mutual understanding and international assistance of each other will be crucial, especially between and among major countries like China and the United States. Now, this is most important because this is in sharp contrast to some other countries which want to divide the world into opposing blocks, as if the Cold War will come back to the world again. Mr. Wang Yi is emphasizing on international cooperation, especially in dealing with major crises like the climate change, for example, where no country will be able to hide behind national barriers. The international cooperation will be the only way out, especially involving big countries, the two largest economies like China and the United States.
What other highlights happened for Wang Ye this week? It was a busy week for him in New York. He's met with many a foreign minister from across the globe. What meetings were most meaningful, do you think?
Well, I think there are several meetings that State Councilor and Foreign Minister Wang Ye had in New York, which struck me with deep impressions. One was his meeting with the Ukrainian Foreign Minister. You may know, ever since February the 24th to 2022, China, Ukraine had communications between them. However, very senior face-to-face meetings have been very, very important, as this one in New York. This would allow leaders of the two countries to see each other and to really exchange their major concerns about the war in Ukraine, and to the extent possible to coordinate their actions, especially in terms of, for example, whether diplomacy should be started, whether mediation should be started, and whether, for example, efforts should be made to end the war rather than to see the prolongation of the war in Ukraine. This is of crucial importance. The other meeting I want to emphasize is Mr. Wang Yi's meeting with Mr. Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, because this is also very important. I think only diplomacy eventually will end the war in Ukraine, and China-Russia discussions and exchange of views, especially expression of China's concerns about the war in Ukraine, face-to-face to Russian leaders, including this one at the United Nations, will be very important. this is important not only for China and Russia, this is also important for the world, because when you take a meeting like this at the United Nations, the whole world will be watching, and everyone will be kind of like an observer.
All right, Victor Gao, thank you very much. Chair Professor at Soochow University.